Yeah, what's up guys? Today we're going to be looking at the 4.7 update and how to work with it. So we're going to be going through how to make a widget, like your main inventory from scratch, and your equipment and pickup system, etc. So we're going to get started with the inventory. So far for the character, I only have this simple blueprint with just movement. So feel free to get started with your own character if you want, or create a new one. Yeah, so just movement so far. First thing I'm going to be starting with here is your main inventory, so the UI side of things. I'm going to make a new folder called the widgets and right click, user interface, and then widget blueprint. Okay, so what you want to do here is you want to make a widget based off the BP underscore main jig inventory. Okay, this is the demo inventory. As you can see, it's also based off the BP underscore main inventory. So make sure just right under user widget, BP underscore main jig inventory. That's going to be your parent class. And it's not going to change anything about your widget. It's just going to expose a couple functions that are useful. So I'm going to name this UI underscore main. And I'm just going to add T just for tutorial, just so I can easily search for it. So UI underscore T main inventory. And so it's like any other widget. So we're going to be customizing this widget, mainly adding in the equipment slots and where to show loot and anything else that you might need, such as the preview character and things like that. So when it comes to the widget, obviously feel free to customize it however you want. But for me, I'm not going to spend too much time, making it look good and all that, just so I don't make this video too long. So gonna start by making an overlay. So overlay right here. The way I'm gonna do this is on left side I'm gonna have my equipment and preview character. In the middle I'm gonna have, whenever I loot a container, I want to display that content right here in the middle. And then on the right side, my equipment inventories, such as if I equip a backpack, I want to see the backpack content right here, pants and things like that. We're gonna do a horizontal box right here, and this is gonna be filling right there. So left side, let's do an overlay for now. So this is going to be mainly for equipment, like that. All right, so when it comes to equipment slots, so you want to add JSI container. So JSI container is going to be your container for normal inventory or equipment inventory. So right now it's normal inventory. So you can like define how many columns, how many rows, etc. But for us, we're trying to make equipment slots. So I'm going to change that to equip to right here. So container type, equip to instead. Okay. As you can see, it switches to a one slot equipment container, and then we can simply adjust the slot size right here. We have 2. This is just a reference to normal or regular container. So we'll keep at 60 for now. But for the slot size here, I'm going to make it at 120 by 120. Okay, this is going to be my equipment slot. So for example, we can say that this is our headwear container. So we can do jig. So I'm just going to go ahead and call it jig headwear. We can also set a name right here. So container name. Let's go ahead and do headwear right there. And then for the font, we have it right here. Container name font. And then we could do like 12 or something like that. So right in the middle, I would like to have my preview character. So I'm going to look for it right here. So it's called bpchar character preview. So I'm going to drag that there. And we will probably get an error here if we compile. So if you try to compile, you'll get this error. Essentially, it's just complaining about the widget name conflicting with another variable name. So I'm going to go ahead and just quickly rename this. I'm just going to remove the BP underscore, just call it char preview, and that's it. So let's go ahead and center this around the middle like that. And then right here, I'm going to just add a padding, a little bit of padding here. So let's try 100 there, maybe like 150. Entire overlay will also have some padding like that. That's good enough for now. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this headwear, and I'm gonna make that for jig armor. So Control D to duplicate the container, and this is gonna be my pants container, and then I also want a backpack container, and then finally a primary container. This is for my weapon, and then we can also add a secondary weapon, maybe for a pistol. We can just call this pistol. So this is going to be reserved for a pistol. So a primary weapon could be a rifle, and then a pistol as our secondary weapon. We can test with that. So for now, I'm happy with these containers. I'm not going to try to add every possible container. This is just mainly so I can cover every situation, such as weapons, clothes, and backpacks, containers in general. Right, so now I'm just gonna adjust the padding a little bit here. So I'm gonna have headwear is gonna be at the top, and then armor is gonna have some padding, like maybe like try 150. So let's do 140 here, and then this one right here. So 140, multiply that by 2. Then for the backpack, maybe the backpack is on the right. Maybe let's do some padding from the left here. I'm also maybe try to get this to be smaller so it looks nicer. But for now, let's just go ahead and put it to the right there. So it's going to be our backpack. Then our primary is probably going to be all the way at the bottom. Or we could have it be like vertical. Why not? So multiply that by 3. And then finally the pistol. The pistol may be like on the right. All right, maybe something like this for now. We'll look into it later. So let's go ahead and rename. And one trick you could do here is you can turn off the outlines to get a better view at your inventory. So this is going to be our headwear. This is our armor. Let's go ahead and change the container name right here. This is our pants, and then this is our primary. So this is our secondary or pistol. Let's just call it pistol. And this is our backpack. Okay, so for our primary, we're going to make it a little bit bigger. So we can go to slot size right here, and then we can do like 300 here. So that looks okay for now. And whenever you have like a container right here, if the equipped image looks rotated, you can enable an option called here rotate equipped image right there. So because we can go 2 ways here, we can either go this way or we can also go. So I could go like 300 here, right, and I can have it like vertical like this, depending on the layout that you want. So if it's like this, you always want to make sure you want to rotate the equipped image if needed, that is. The next thing we want to do here is we want to give them each the appropriate tag. Okay, so this is headwear. This is very important. So container tag, we want to change that to, you want to go with the jig.player slot and then select the appropriate tag. So in this case, it's headwear, and then armor. So player slot. This is going to be pants. And of course, feel free to add more tags if needed. So right here, it's going to be primary. This is going to be our backpack. And finally, our pistol slot. Or you can also choose secondary. But pistol will do for now. So this is going to be my preview character right there. These are my equipment slots. And once again, if you need, like, if you play the demo, you'll notice that we have a secure container. If you want to make a container like that, you can always do that. So if I duplicate this, the first thing obviously you want to do here is you want to make an inventory, change the slot size to 60, and then change the columns to whatever you need. So 5x2, something like that. But for me, I'm going to keep them mainly equipment slots. And if you want to make a secure container, you can also make it something that you can equip, just like some other games. So far we have this right here. So this is where I'm going to be having my equipment. Now, in the middle right here, I want to display the content of a container that I'm looting, or a backpack, or a player, or whatever. So for that, we're going to add a BP equipment. So BP equip to content. Going to add that to the horizontal box. And I just noticed that this right here is not part of the horizontal box. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it is the case. So this right here is going to move to the left. And this is going to be my, let's just call it loot content for now. Okay. So for the visibility here, this is going to be hidden by default. So we're going to set the visibility to collapse. The name doesn't matter, because once we loot a certain thing, we're going to grab the name from whatever we're looting, and then we're going to display it right here. And this also updates the weight and everything. For now, we're going to center it like that and leave it be. Maybe add a little bit of pattern later. Well, we can do it right now. Maybe do 50 from the left and 50 from the right. And finally, my equipment stuff. So whenever I equip a backpack, I want to see those containers right here. Pants, or any item that has a container. Armor could be an armor vest with slots. So I want to see that right here. And for that, I'm going to add a vertical box. Not going to give it any title or anything. It's just for testing for now. We can maybe modify that later. But for the time being, it's going to be top right. You can fill it maybe like that. And I'm going to name it VB equipment content. Okay, I'm gonna make it a variable so I can access it later. I'm gonna give it a little bit of padding here. Maybe the top I can give it like 100, and from the right maybe like 50. We can adjust that later. For now, it's not super important. That's pretty much all I need for now. We can go back later and adjust based on what we do when we make our pickups and things like that. But for the time being, first thing you want to do once you do this, you want to go to add override function and search for get inventory data. So this is the function that we're going to override. This is the main function that will make everything work for you out of the box. You don't need to handle anything on your own, and yeah, so you just gotta indicate your containers and all your settings, and it will take care of everything for you. All right, so the first thing here, we're going to indicate our containers. So let's just call make a container, and for now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 containers. So right here, this order matters, okay? And we'll look into that later when we configure our components. But for now, I'm gonna be go in this order like this with our headwear first. Let's do headwear first. Let's do armor second. Pants. And then maybe backpack. And then finally our primary and then pistol slot. Like that. So these are main containers. Excluded containers are containers that should be excluded from normal gameplay behavior. So for example, the demo map, if you play, we have a stash container, but that's normally it's maybe hidden. You don't want it to be, you don't want to give the player a stash container like a normal gameplay, because that's just a lot of space. So maybe that container is only hidden or only shown in certain cases. So you want to make sure you exclude it right here. So whenever you pick up an item or buy stuff, sell things, you want to exclude that container. You don't want to consider it. So for now, we don't have any special containers. We'll leave that empty. The loot content is simply this one right here, the loot content that we just added. I'm gonna go ahead and plug that there. Close on clear, we'll set that to true. So if I'm looting something, then I close my inventory. I want to clear the loot widget. Equipment content panel, essentially just whatever you like, some sort of panel that supports multiple things, multiple child. So that's going to be my vertical box. This is mainly for your equipment content. For example, you equip the backpack, you want to show that content in here, or you want to add that content here. Swap containers, this is mainly when you have something, like for example, in the demo, we have primary and secondary, is you want to be able to swap between primary and secondary. So if I drag primary over secondary, I want to be able to swap them. So that's where you would indicate that right here. You would probably just be like, here's my primary, and then plug in your secondary. But in this case, we don't have that. Then we don't need to indicate anything. The preview widget is this one right here. Again, this is optional. You don't need, if you don't want to use the preview character, you don't have to. You can just leave this empty. But for now, we're going to pass our preview widget and then indicate the preview class, which is our BP Jake character preview. And if you can navigate to it and then change the mesh if you want. For now, I'm using the mannequin, the UE5 mannequin. But that's all you need to do. Just change the mesh and set some idle pose, and then that's it. The equipment and everything else will be handled automatically. So far, that's all we need to do here. If you want to know whenever like a certain loot, so for example, if I loot something, a loot container, I want to know about that. There's a event called here added removed. This right here will be called whenever loot container, a loot content is added to right here. So sometimes you might want to maybe hide certain elements of your HUD based on this. So other things that you might need, and they don't really require any setup. It's you just use them in your widget, and you can hide them based on gameplay. So one of the widgets is our crafting widget. So you want to go with the BP crafting widget. You can simply add it to your widget and then hide it. Maybe like do some sort of tabs like I'm doing with the demo, and then you can like cycle between menus. But this one right here will pull your crafting recipes from the character. We'll look into that later. But that's all you need to do here. You just need to add it to your widget and use it. It doesn't require any setup in the widget itself. The other widget is the vicinity widget. You can also just add it to your inventory, and then maybe put in its own tab. And this one right here will scan for items that are nearby, and will display them right here, and then you can then loot them and interact with them from here. And if you don't need any of those, then you don't have to add them. All right, so far we have this. This is already enough to get started with some sort of gameplay. So we're gonna go to the character. The first thing we want to do here is add 3 interfaces. So in your own character, go to class settings and then add the jig character interface. So BP underscore jig character interface. The second interface is going to be the MP component. So BP jig MP component interface. And then finally, it's going to be the BP MP interact interface. So 3 interfaces that we need to add. We'll handle them later. They should be right here. And then we need to add 3 components. The first component is going to be our multiplayer component. The second component is going to be our jig helper. We'll look into how this is used later. And then finally the context, which is responsible for displaying the right-click menu when you're right-clicking on an item. So I'm going to select the jig multiplayer and we're going to configure our container settings. Okay, first thing I'm going to do here is the inventory widget class is going to be our inventory widget. So I'm going to select that and do UIT main, and that should pop right there. So that's our inventory widget. Very important, change this to player instead of loot container, because this is a player and BP, it's not a loot container, so we'll change that to player. Then right here, we're going to indicate our container settings. Essentially what you want to do here is, if I go here on our get inventory data, we have these containers. So we need to respect the order. Okay, so first element is headwear, armor, pants, etc. Right? So right here, I'm going to add first element is headwear, right? And it's an equipment slot. Okay, the demo, we have a secure container. If it's a normal container, you can like keep this false and then be like, okay, it's 5x2. But in this case, it's an equipment slot, so we make sure we check that. But you don't have to do this manually. I'm going to clear it. And what I'm going to do here is first make sure you indicate the inventory widget, and then I'm going to simply drag the character and the map, and then go to the details panel, select the MP or the jig multiplayer. And you'll notice here we have a button. And once I click this set container settings from widget, once I click on it, it will add those containers for me. But I have to copy them now because it only added them in this instance. So then I'm going to right click here, copy. Then I'm going to simply delete the character now and go back to our character BP. And then I'm going to simply paste that. Okay, so what this does, it simply copies, the container name and whether it's an equipment or not, and it respects this order right here. But if we look at it right here, you can see that it's just copied the name. It said, okay, it's an equipment slot, armor, equipment slot, yes, pants, etc. And these are my containers. Again, very important, the order matters. This order right here, you need to match this order. I mean, at this point, we could already like work with our inventory if we want. So we just use a key, inventory key, or you can use whatever you want. I'm going to use this, or you can use tab, right, for testing purposes. And you can simply do toggle inventory. Right, if I go ahead and play, as you can see, here's my inventory. There's the preview character working as intended. And here's my slots, right? All right, so the second thing we want to be doing here is configuring our jig helper component. This one right here is responsible for handling equipment. And we'll look into that later, but this makes it super easy to simply call in certain functions and they will handle those equipments for you. So this right here comes with some default values, but since we have a different setup, I'm going to go ahead and clear that. So equipment ID slot config, clear that, and then let's go ahead and add a couple elements. So again, the order matters, so I'm going to go ahead and just reference this real quick. So the first thing here is headwear, our first slot. So I'm going to copy that name and then go here and just simply paste that headwear container name. The key is the player slot tag, okay? It's similar to what we've done here, right? So we have headwear here, armor, etc. So we're gonna be doing the same thing. So this is gonna be our headwear. Okay, now is equipment, that is true. It's not a normal container, it's just an equipment container. Is persistent actor, this is mainly referring to pickups that don't get destroyed when you equip them. That would be your primary weapon, for example, pistol, things like that. Again, this is optional. If you want to destroy every equipment and then maybe spawn in something else, you can do that. But for me, primary and pistol, those are going to be persistent, meaning I'll turn off collision and just use the pickup as is. Because it comes with attachments in it and things like that. It's easier, but it's totally doable to destroy the pickup and then spawn something else, something simpler. Is persistent actor is going to be false. Secondary, use leader pose. So use leader pose is mainly for equipment that needs to follow the main mesh. For example, clothes, right? Armor, pants, those need to match the main mesh animation. So if you set that to true, then it will be the case. For headwear, for me, I'm going to mostly be using static meshes for headwear stuff. I don't want it to be. I don't want it to have the same skeleton as the main mesh. Yeah, so that's just as an optimization. I'm just gonna make it so every headwear is just a static mesh, or maybe skeletal mesh, but it has a simpler mesh skeleton. Right. So use leader pose no. Then I'm gonna add another element. This is gonna be the armor. Gonna copy the name real quick. So I'm gonna set the tag. This is gonna be my player slot armor. The container name is going to be armor. Is equipment true? Persistent actor false. And this is also false. But in this case, it will use the leader pose because armor is probably going to have to match the. Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, it will have to match the main mesh. So right here, it's going to be player slot pants. Container name is pants. It's not a persistent, but we're gonna set up the leader pose for it. And backpack. So backpack is gonna be backpack tag player slot backpack. Okay, make sure you use the player slot, not the item type. So jig.player slot, and then armor is backpack. Is equipment true? It's not gonna use leader pose. Again, backpack is probably gonna be a static mesh or a normal skeletal mesh that just gets attached. So no leader pose or anything. And then finally our primary and pistol slot. So add a new element. That's gonna be my primary, and then change that to primary, and then is persistent actor in this case true because I'm not going to be destroying the pickup. I'm going to be just turn off collision and attach it. And by the way, like headwear for example, everything here supports attachments. Even if it's a simple mesh, if it's a simple static mesh, it can support attachments. We'll look into that later. And then finally our pistol. So it's going to be player slot pistol. So player slot, make sure you use the player slot there. And this is going to be pistol container name. Equipment true, persistent actor true, and that's it. Check multiplayer component. We set up our container config right here. One trick you can use here, if you hold shift and click, you can collapse everything. You can also, if I hold shift and click, you can show everything. Okay, so starting items. You can indicate your starting items. For example, our headwear here, let's just say I want the player to start with a helmet. I'm going to just use some of the data assets of the demo just to showcase this, but we'll be making our own items in a second. But for now, I'm going to say, hey, I want to start with a helmet. And then spawn chance is 100. Okay, if I play right now, nothing is going to happen. As you can see, that's because we need to request those starting items. We need to initialize the multiplayer component. So we're going to use our begin play. Okay, so this is very important to do. You want to initialize your container. Okay, and I always just like to right click here and add a parent call just in case this is a child of some other class. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to get the controller. First of all, I'm going to just make sure that I'm not, if it's a dedicated server, I'm not going to be doing anything here. Just get that out of the way. So if I'm not a dedicated server, then get the controller. Make sure it's valid because in a multiplayer scenario, sometimes that's not valid for a couple milliseconds. But if it is valid, we're going to be, hey, am I a local controller? Is a local controller, okay? Now, like I said, in a multiplayer scenario, this will fail sometimes, depending on ping or replication. Sometimes, like, a controller might not replicate immediately. So in that case, we're going to use the helper here, and then drag a pane and look for assign. All right, so then we have on possessed. Okay, we need this event. All right, there you go. So we're going to use this right here. This gets called whenever a controller is assigned. So first of all, I want to check is valid because if you end possess, it can also trigger. And then if it's valid, I'm going to go ahead and just do this right here. So like that. And then if everything goes well, this is the based on what you want to do. So I'm going to get this right here. So we have three options here. We have our starting items. We indicated them right here. So we have a headwear. So let's just say whenever the player plays, I want them to always have some sort of helmet. Okay, you can add multiple and indicate a spawn chance if you want. So maybe you want them to start with a certain random helmet. You can do that. But okay, so if I just want to get my starting items, I can do server request data. Okay, that's pretty much all you need to do here. And if I go ahead and play, you're gonna notice that I have my helmet there. So we don't have the inspector, the snapshot feature, so we'll do that now. All you gotta do here is just go to your world settings and then change the game state to BP underscore MP game state. As soon as you do that, then now the inspection will work. As you can see there, you can inspect stuff, and then you can also modify this. We'll look into that later. So this is how you can initialize the inventory with your starting items. Even if you don't have starting items, you want to initialize your inventory like this, okay? Now, if you want to load in a save instead, maybe like maybe you have a game progress and you want to load a certain save, you can, instead of this, we can do server request save. Okay, so we can do request data from save. And then we can just do get save name here. The save name, you can indicate it right here. Like that. So jig player will be the name, or you can pass in a custom one. So this right here, so I'm gonna go ahead and just rename this jig player because I think I already have a save. I don't want to load that with a different config. I'm just gonna add 2 right there, so jig player 2, okay? So if I go ahead and play, as you can see, it's gonna load my starting item. So this, the way it works is that it will try to load a certain save, but if it couldn't find the save, it will then load in your starting items. Now, a third option here is client-side data. Okay, so if you select a Jig multiplayer component, you'll see we have a use client-side save. If we set that to true, client-side data is mainly for co-op gameplay, maybe like like you're connecting to your friend's server, but then when you exit, you want to have that you want to have your inventory data saved on your own computer, so that maybe you want to continue playing offline or you want to connect to some other server and continue with that same data. You can use client-side data for testing purposes, or if you just want to do co-op and don't care about dedicated servers or server-side saving. So in that case, what you want to do here is you want to load your own local save data and then send it to the server. So in this case, you want to do load game from slot. It's going to be, for example, if it's the same thing, then you could just simply do this, right? And then you can cast that to our jig save system. Now, if it fails, so let's just say normally you just want to request normal data. Okay, like that. So I would just do right here is client side. Okay, is client side data enabled? If that is true, then if it's false, I'll just request my normal starting items. If not, or load in a save. If not, I'm gonna load a client-side data. If it fails, that means probably the data doesn't exist, or you're playing for the first time, things like that. So just in case it doesn't exist, we can just then fall back to, hey, give me the starting items. And then once you have this data right here, you want to call in the server client-side data, and you simply want to send that data. So j containers, and you simply want to send those containers to the server, and then initialize your inventory that way. So we get UIDs, get the weight, and then the action bar UIDs. Like that. And right here, I can then just go here and turn off client-side data for this. And we're going to use server-side data. Okay, again, if I play, as you can see, it still loads in my starting items, which is fine. All right, so that would be basically the setup to get your inventory working. So that's essentially all we need to do here. One thing to mention here is in each container, you want to make sure you indicate your supported items. So here I want to support primary item types. Okay, make sure you use the primary item type, not the player slot. In this case, I only want to support headwear. Now, if you want to be specific about it, you can be, I only want to support certain data assets, certain items, or I want to support every headwear except for these ones right here. But for now, we're going to stick to specifying a primary type. In this case, I want to do an armor, primary type armor, pants, and it's going to be, so this right here is going to be taking, so we don't have a primary tag, But this is a primary slot, so meaning that it can support multiple items. For example, it can be will support rifles, shotguns. So this is a container tag, so you can indicate multiple things. So rifle and shotguns for now, and this is going to be a backpack, and finally this is going to support pistols. So once again, make sure you use the primary item type tag. So what we're going to be doing now is go over the equipment and these three interfaces that we just added and see how the system works, because I think it's very important to understand how certain interactions happen within the system. So if you want to add any custom logic, you can do that. So we're going to be using some of the stuff from the demo, such as the pickup system. We'll go over how the pickup system is set up. But just for the sake of not making this video too long, we're going to be checking out some of the examples and the demo, mainly just to pick up some of the pickups and data assets. And then after this, we'll make like smaller videos on how to make specific things, such as how to make a rifle from scratch, how to make certain various container type, maybe features that don't exist in the demo. Maybe we can work on those and explore them a little bit further. Right now we have our UI side of thing covered. We have our config done here. Let's go ahead and clear the starting items because we want to pick up some items off the ground. This helper is responsible for managing your equipment, and we're going to cover those interfaces right now. And if you have the choice to either use this helper to manage those equipment, or you can handle them yourself through these interfaces right here. And then this is mainly just a context menu. Just quickly right here, because this should be just a one-time thing, just in case you're possessing and possessing your own character, maybe like you have a vehicle or something. We're just simply going to do a do once here just to make sure that we only doing this once. So right now, if we go ahead and play, we have a couple slots right here. So let's add some pickups and see how it goes. So we're going to be putting in a couple pickups just to get those slots filled. So we need a helmet. Let's go ahead and add a backpack like there. Let's put in the armor vest because this one has a container. I think that will be interesting to show on the side of the inventory. And then let's go ahead and add a rifle, a modular rifle, and then a pistol. So we're just going to make sure that these work out of the box. So also I suggest you do the same before trying to create your own pickups and everything. Just make sure the system works with the default pickups, and then from there we can then start making some custom pickups, or maybe even do like a new pickup system from scratch. And look at that, there's our pistol right there. So let's go and explore our pickup system. For the pickup system, we have two components right here. We have the pickup component. This just allows you to specify a data asset and some other settings, such as maybe a random count and some stats. But it's mainly just to indicate the data asset. For example, the backpack pickup. So the pickup component, we have our backpack right here. The multiplier component is needed to handle looting pickups and pickups having or being containers and having content inside of them. For example, the backpack right here, it has the same concept as the character. So the type is pickup, and then it has its own container settings. So two containers right here, we indicated them because this based off the special container, which is the SP backpack. This SP backpack is based off the main special container. So if you want to create more containers or special containers, you can just do that. So we did kind of similar to the character. We simply added whatever containers here. And then for this one, you can simply set the all containers right here and indicate your containers. And that's all you need to do. And then for the backpack, we simply set it right here. And then that's why we have 5x5 and 5x2, because that's the special container, kind of similar to the player inventory. So for now, what we really want to do here is we want to interact with a pickup. Okay, we want to be able to look at a pickup, press F, or maybe cycle and search a backpack, for example. So either pick it up or search it. So we want to be able to handle that for our character. These two components, and then the pickup has two interfaces similar to the character. This one has two. It has the MP component. This is how the multiplier component communicate with the actor owner, and then the interact interface is mainly used for us, the player, to interact with this pickup. So the main interface here, we have three main interfaces when it comes to interaction with the pickup. But before that, if I go back to the character and select the helper, we have a trace to actors. If this is true, then the component will do a trace. It's going to look for that interaction interface, and it will see what kind of interaction we can execute. So when we are looking at the pickup, this interface will be called. So if I add a breakpoint there and then look at any pickup right here, As you can see, that gets triggered. Show some visual feedback, right? And then we initialize the options. And these options, by default, there's an interface here handled called get interact options. First option right here is pickup. So any pickup will have a guaranteed option or pick me up as an option. And then if the pickup is a container, such as a backpack, it will have a secondary option called search, which is right here. So we have either pickup or search. So these two options are by default available, but if you want to expand on this, feel free. We'll cover that on our pickup video soon. So right here, this is what we use to initialize the pickup. This is mainly for the widget right here, but this is mainly to just show some visual feedback that hey, I'm looking at this pickup, and then on the interact, this is called when I stop looking at the pickup. But the main one that we really care about is this right here, execute interact. This right here will trigger when I press F, for example, to try and pick up the item. So we need to add that right here. So let's add some sort of interaction input. So I already have a interact input here, but feel free to use your own inputs if you want. And we simply want to use the helper here and call in the try interact. Okay, so if I press F, I will try to interact with whatever I'm looking at currently. So if I go back to the pickup right here and add a breakpoint there, and I look at this rifle and press F, you see that it gets executed. And what this will do is it will simply forward that event to the character, and that's our first interface event that we're going to handle on our character, which is if we just look for pickup, we have this on pickup interact executed. So this is essentially, hey, you just interacted with a pickup, what do you want to do? This is where we're going to try to add it to the inventory, and we have a function for that with the helper, and we can simply do try pickup. Okay, then we'll pass in the pickup reference and the target container, and that's it. So this right here will try to interact with the pickup and attempt to add it to our inventory, right? So if I press F, you can see there the helmet is added to our inventory. I can do the same with the backpack, and here's our backpack actually being added because it has a container. So we're able to pick up items, but you can see here that in terms of the pickup in the world, nothing happens to it. So that's our next interface that we're going to be dealing with here. The next interface is whenever I pick up an item, I want to know about that. I want to do something with the pickup itself. So I might want to destroy it. I might want to equip it. If we search for equipped, we have check MP on pickup equipped. So this right here will be triggered whenever we press F, for example, and I pick up and it gets added to our inventory. So you can decide what to do with this pickup. But for the helper, we have a function for that as well. And at any time, feel free to open the helper and check out some of these functions if you want to expand on them or do your own thing if you want. So for this one, we will simply do on pickup equipped and simply forward those parameters. And this based on your configuration right here, based on our configuration right here, it will maybe try to destroy the pickup and then like just assign some skeletal mesh or static mesh depending on data asset, or it will keep the actor if it's persistent, and then it will turn off collision and just simply equip the actor, which is the case for our rifle, pistol, etc. But for our purposes here, we'll simply forward the parameters and let it decide what to do. All right, so far if I just go ahead and play with this, press F, as you can see the helmet is equipped to my character physically. This also works for multiplayer. And for our rifle, let's go ahead and pick that up. As you can see, everything is working as intended. The attachments are handled and everything. And right here, the backpack as well. So this covers us picking up items off the ground. The next one is I want to be able to loot either a loot container or the backpack itself. And while we add it, let's go and add our loot container there. Maybe add our ammo box right here. And let's see if we at least can interact with it. Okay, so I'm going to walk to it, press F, and nothing happened. Okay, so this is our next interface event. And again, it's in the character. And we're going to look for add jig, and we have add jig widget to content. Okay, so this right here gets called whenever you interact with something that has a container. For example, you're looting a backpack or you're looting a container. So what we're going to do here is we are going to get the multiplayer component. We're going to access our inventory widget like so. And then we're going to call our jig set loot container. This is the interface function that we're executing on our inventory widget. So this will let it add that widget based on what we set up earlier in our inventory. And then of course we need to toggle our inventory, because if I press F on a loot container, I want to have the inventory, added to the viewport. So going to give it a shot. So if I press F here, as you can see, it brings my widget, but I don't see anything. And that's because if I go back to our inventory real quick, so right here, so we have this, if you remember, we have it collapsed by default. So we need to use this event to simply show this widget. And of course, depending on what you want to do, you might want to do something else, but I'm going to do set visibility here. And if I have some sort of widget added to my inventory, I want to show this widget right here. So if it's added, I want to do hit testable, but this means it will show. If not, it will be collapsed. Let's go ahead and give it another try now. And as you can see now, pressing F, it brings the ammo container. Should be the same for backpack, but for now we don't have a way to cycle between these options because we can either pick up the item or search, but we need to add those hotkeys. So let's go ahead and use the mouse wheel maybe. Going to use mouse wheel up and down like that, and then I'll simply use the helper here and look for cycle options like that. So this is true, one of them is going to be false. And then if I now go to the backpack, I should be able to cycle between these options with my mouse wheel. So if I do search, it's the same thing. It brings the backpack widget and it opens my inventory and I can interact with it. So right now the issue is I cannot move stuff to my inventory here. And the reason is because whenever you loot something, the server will send you the data about the loot and you need to handle that. So that's going to be our next interface here. And let's go ahead and look for request data. So request server data. Whenever we interact with a container item, we want the server to send us that data. So this right here is used whenever we interact with a container or any type of container. Could be a pickup, could be a loot container. So we simply need to forward this event to our multiplayer right here. So we're going to go ahead and do server request data like that, and we will simply pass in the component like that. This is an actor component, so let's go ahead and cast that to object multiplayer like that. Right click, make it pure, and hook it right there. So this now should allow us to interact with our any container, and then as you can see now we see that ammo data right there, and then we can just simply add stuff, take it from there, move stuff like that. On the subject of looting items or containers, if I go ahead and loot this box and start walking away, you can see that this container stays on my screen forever. So we'll handle that now, and that's going to be the, if I just look for distance, we have on interact actor over distance. This gets called whenever you're too far away from whatever you're currently looting. So all we got to do here is simply toggle the inventory or close the inventory. We can just call toggle inventory, but obviously we'll need to make sure that it's visible first. So get our inventory widget like that, and then if only if it's visible, then we'll simply toggle it like so. And that's all we need to do here. So if I go ahead and give it a test, loot, start walking away, gets automatically closed. So right now we're going to be covering this on main container item removed. So this one right here will be called whenever you inequip or an item is removed from one of your main containers. Because right now these are all our main containers. Okay, if I move this right here, this gets called. So we need to cover that. And this also is responsible for updating the character, because right now if I have this helmet and then I inequip it, you can see that my character still has that helmet. So this right here will take care of that. So we'll use the helper once again and do main removed. And we'll simply pass in the parameters like so. And that should take care of our equipment. And the other one is obviously when you add something to a main container, that would be main added. So on main container added, we'll do the same thing here. Main added like so. So let's go ahead and give it a test. So I'll equip that helmet, and then I will inequip this helmet now. As you can see now it's gone off my character, but if I equip it back, it is back. So this covers our main containers, but what if we want to know about whenever I move something within my own inventory. For example, what if I want to know whenever like I move something like this, right? Um, so we have three interfaces. We have on added. So just normal added, there's no main in it. So main just means your main equipment slots, but we have three interfaces here: on item added, on item removed, and then on moved. So three interfaces right here: on item added, on item removed, on and on item moved. On item moved will be called whenever you move something within your own inventory. For example, so now I have this M on my backpack. If I just move it like this will be called. This is usually just used to update attachments on an item. Could be a weapon, could be like a helmet with some attachments. This is we're going to be using this to update that. But if you just want to know when that happens, you can use this. This right here, on removed, means that you moved something from your own inventory to somewhere else, external, such as a pickup or a loot container. And then the opposite, you added it from some external container to your own inventory. This will be called. But for us right now, we just simply need to forward these three events to our helper component. So we gonna call added on item added like that, and then removed, and then finally moved. So as far as the helper component, this is mainly used, these three events are mainly used to update attachments on weapons and any items that support attachments. But you can always use them for any other interactions that's needed. So go ahead and actually give it a test here. I'm gonna go ahead and pick up my rifle here, get that backpack, and gotta go ahead and equip some attachments. Let's try to remove some of these red attachments just to see if it updates. Gonna go ahead and remove that laser sight. As you can see, it actually does update there. And we'll move this handguard completely. And you can see that it updates physically on the weapon. So those three interfaces are responsible for this exact thing. So for our preview character, let's make sure everything is working as intended. So far, our character is not updating when I have a backpack and also whenever I equip anything other than a persistent actor, meaning like backpack, pants. So helmet was equipped because this one supports attachments, right? You can put in like a flashlight. So to fix that, it's a simple interface. If we just look for preview, we have set preview character or actor, I mean. So set preview actor, we simply need to do the same thing here. So call set preview character there, and we'll simply pass in the preview. So this right here, so our inventory set up the preview character, and then this gets called, and we forward that to our helper, and that should fix our issue here. And as you can see, it fixes it like that. There you go. So next one is we want to be able to drop items. Okay. So for example here, if I drop my headwear, as you can see, it gets dropped right from my own inventory, but it's not in the world, right? We need to handle that. Right here, so we're going to back to our main inventory. So we already have this. This is responsible for that interaction. So drop item back G widget. So we want to make sure you have this on your own inventory. And then back to our multiplayer component here. You want to make sure we allow dropping items. Again, if you don't have this added, just look for it right here. Just call for drop. And we have on item back G widget, and make sure you add it there below underneath everything, and then just make sure it covers the entire inventory or the area that you want to be able to drop items, and then make sure your multiplayer component has the allow dropping items. And then after that, we need one interface on our character is called request drop item. Okay, so this is used whenever something is dropped and we need to spawn it in the world, and we can simply forward that to our jig helper. So request drop or request drop as a pickup, and that will take care of spawning the item, read it from the data asset, and then spawn it in front of the character. So let's go ahead and give it another try here, and there you go. As you can see, works just fine. So here, not working. This is mainly because the context menu is not able to access the multiplayer component. So you want to search for get multiplayer component and simply return that multiplayer component like so. And that should then fix our context menu interaction, as you can see there. So what we just covered right now are the core main interface functions that you need to handle to make the system work. So far we are able to do pretty much everything in terms of the inventory interactions. We're able to pick up items, loot containers, equip stuff. Let's go ahead and handle some of the other interface functions just so we have everything covered. All right, so first one is swap. So if you have two containers that are able to swap, we need to make sure we handle that. So on container swap, and we simply want to forward this to our helper. So preview, this is mainly to update the preview character. So preview attachment updated, and we simply need to get the get equipped item from here, pass it like that, do another event like that, and then do the same thing for the other container like so, and that's it. So this is mainly to update the preview character whenever two items are swapped, like two items in your main slots. And then this one right here will be called when you want to do that. So we'll also pass it to our helper, and we can simply do container swap like that. And then we'll pass in the from and to and let it handle swapping the items. So on item consumed, this will be called whenever you consume an item. So for example, if I add a breakpoint there and let me just put in like a an apple or water. So a water bottle like that. And then let's go ahead and play, get the water in. And then let's just say I want to use about half there. This will get triggered. It will tell you the consumed item is water because the water bottle is a container and water is inside. So this is the consumed item, which is the water. This is the data asset. And inside the data asset, you can use some of these um, settings right here, consumable bonuses, remove status effects, or you can use your own system if you want. Inside of is essentially just the container. In this case, it's the water bottle data asset. And you can check out my demo character and see what I did there. Another one is get trace actor to ignore. So get trace actor to ignore, you can use this, you can execute it on the character, and we can get our weapons and things like that that we want to ignore from traces and things like that. We can just simply call in the trace ignore and pass those actors like so. Next one is on special container attachment updated. This will be called, this is mainly just to update the preview. So let me give it another try here. So I want to see if these attachments update on the preview character. So if I take out the handguard, you can see that it doesn't update. So this function right here is responsible for that. So all we got to do here is simply call in the preview attachment updated. So this function is essentially, hey, update the preview character attachments. Let's go ahead and remove that handguard. And as you can see, it actually does work on the laser side. Yep. All right, so now for your equipment, so meaning whenever you want to swap your current active weapon, okay? Because right now we have our weapon, but I want to be able to press 1 and have that as my active weapon and be able to shoot and things like that. First of all, the get animation info like that, that's what we need to handle. This is mainly for my animation BP here, which needs that info. So we're going to make a function here called get active weapon. Okay, so get active weapon is going to return my current equipped weapon. And we can simply get that by using, again, the helper. And we can do get active weapon, and that's going to return the active weapon like that. And then I'll simply return that like so. And then I need the active slot. And I can do the same thing here, get active weapon slot. And then, so this right here is used to get the active weapon slot. I can actually return it there. That's it. That's all I need for now. So I'll use that here for the info because I need to access that. So here's the active slot. Then we can like do lean in and ADS. You can handle those. Like we can use like a right click menu and do ADS, but for now that's not super important. The equipped weapon data asset, I'm gonna right click, do promote to local variable. Just call it DA there, and then do a sequence. Just in case whatever I'm equipping right now is not valid or I'm not equipping anything at all, I don't want to be retrieving that information from a null reference. So I'll do get item info, you execute that interface, and we will simply set this data asset like so. I'm going to use the not num1, but I'm going to use the one key one keyboard to equip my current weapon. So let's go ahead and play a montage. So let's get the mesh, play montage, and we're gonna be playing the MP equipped montage, and then when we hit the notify. All right, so once we hit the notify, we will use again the helper, and we want to get the get equipped actor by slot. This is just an example. Feel free to check my demo for how to do it, and obviously we need a server event for multiplayer, but this is just to demonstrate how to do it. It's the same thing I'm doing with the demo character, so you can just check that out. But essentially here, all I need to do here is once I hit the notify, I need to access the primary. So that's what I'm trying to equip here. When I press 1, I want to equip the primary. And if this is valid, then I will equip it to my main hand instead of my back socket. So I'll simply get the mesh right here, attach to component like so, like that. And then the parent is going to be the mesh. The socket, we're going to retrieve it from the data asset. So this is our pickup. We'll do the same thing. So get item info. You can make this into a function, make it pretty. But for the time being, this is good enough. All right, so I simply want to access that socket. So equip. So I want that equip socket like so. And then I will snap to target, and snap to target. And then I want to change my current active slot. So set active weapon slot. This also would be the place to like maybe set that an ALS or something like that you're using. So in this case, I'm trying to set it for my primary slot. Okay, let's go ahead and give it a try, see if it works. First of all, I'm gonna obviously equip my rifle, press 1, and there you go. And now I have my primary weapon. So if I press 1, it's gonna do the same thing. So this is where you check. So to prevent that, we can again just ask for what is our current active weapon. So, or I could just do get equipped weapon. So the function that we just created, get active weapon. Okay, and simply make sure that if it's not primary, meaning that we already equip in our primary, then if that's the case, then we do the montage and equip it. So press that, press 1, and there's our weapon equipped. If I press 1 again, nothing happens because I already equipped it. So we get some error here. It's complaining about this being invalid, which probably means that the animation BP is like ticking before the character for some reason. But we'll simply do check if it's active. If it's not, we'll simply do this. And that should eliminate the error. So quickly, if I press 1, he does the animation even though I don't have any weapon. So I simply need to check that I actually have an actor or an equipment available. So we'll simply do this. So first, check that we have an actor available. Is valid like that, and then proceed. So now if I play, press 1, nothing happens. If I equip the rifle to my back and press 1, he equips it. And with the helper, it already take care of everything. Like if I drop it, for example, as you can see, I go back to normal mode. I can pick it up again and go here. I think that's gonna do it for this tutorial. We're gonna be doing more videos on specific topics. For example, how to create a pickup system, weapons, things like that. But this video was mainly dedicated to just integrating the system into an existing character, have an understanding of certain interfaces that get executed on your own character and how to use them to know what's going on in your inventory. Feel free to check out the demo character and see some of the nodes right here. So for example, saving and loading, other nodes like here. See what I did. So all of those interfaces that we just covered are here. If you want to see how I handle them here, or if there's anything different, you can always check them out here. Reloading, shooting, and all that is handled right here. If you want to copy this logic or just check it out, see what I did. But like I said, we will be following up with more videos on specific topics. Also keep an eye on the documentation page. I'll try to keep that also up to date and put in some more extra explanation on certain features. But yeah, until then, if you have any questions, feel free to join our Discord or leave a comment below, and I'll be happy to help. So until then, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.